Right, so for tonight's planting we're not doing anything particularly new, but we are going to be doing something we've only done once before on this planting journey. So this is Kigelia africana. I found a little seedling at a low price, and they do usually live in wet environments, so it shouldn't mind getting watered quite a bit to settle in at this time of year, whereas some of our native trees wouldn't really like being watered in at this time of year, but if they've just been transferred they won't really cope without the water. So this should be a decent time of year to plant it. This is going in a much more sheltered environment than the first one I did. The first one I did was going to get more or less full afternoon sun for most of the year, so I did surround it with a bunch of little Dracaenas to just try and keep it as sheltered as possible when it was first settling in. First off, it's a weaker sun time of year because the sun is way up in the northern hemisphere, not really bothering us too much right now. And secondly, this is surrounded by some young trees, which should provide a fairly light, even shade through most of the day while it's still young and tender. It will overtake most of them and sort of share canopy with one of them as it gets bigger. But I'm really not that concerned about it getting sunburnt here. Instead, I'm going to be protecting it chemically, because last time it did thoroughly get nibbled by woolly bear caterpillars, because the Dracaenas really aren't that toxic. So for something generalist like the woolly bear, they just provide a decent bit of shelter. If it nibbled them occasionally out of curiosity, it's not going to do anything to disrupt them. Whereas this Alpinia zerumbit, which is the shell ginger, should make them think twice about what they're nibbling, so we shouldn't be finding this getting used as caterpillars for shelter in between eating this little tree. We're also going to be putting a little piece of the Calincos sexangularis, which is one of the native calincos, right at the front of this. So this will be hopefully spreading out and shading the soil from the winter sun once everything gets a little bit bigger here and this, has spread out a bit more. For our second planting today, because we do still have some catching up to do, we're going to be planting a lovely little piece of Yucca gigantea. This is one that has rooted quite well, but the stem is quite soft because the roots are all right at the bottom of the bag, and clearly I hadn't been watering it sufficiently for its liking lately. So hopefully this will perk it up, because I did put water in the hole before I started planting, and I'm going to do a little bit of watering as the soil goes in, just to make sure that around the roots of this it is nice and moist to get started with. This Yucca doesn't seem to mind being quite wet at all. I'm fairly sure you could root this one in water, even if most yuccas really wouldn't appreciate that. As its companion plants, we are going to be going sort of fully American, because the yucca is a Central American one. So we're also going to be putting a Central American agave, which is the agave angustifolia. I think it's the swordleaf agave. It's a very prickly one. It does tend to suck quite vigorously, so it should spread out and form quite a close, low, sort of fireproof barrier around the base of this. Not that the yucca is particularly sensitive to fire itself. And the second plant we're putting is going to be a Mexican one. This is a Puntia ficus indica. This is a red-fruited variety, whereas the one we have that I've planted previously as a companion plant is a yellow-fruited one. So I'm curious to see how this will compare by taste when it does come up. It has calced over nicely. This was cut about a month ago. But that should be everything for tonight. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and if you haven't enjoyed it, thank you for watching anyway. Please tune in again tomorrow. I will be planting something else. I might actually be in daylight then, but seeing as today I really thought I'd be managing in daylight and I didn't, no promises.